All right. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are with UNICEF, and what we are presenting to you are some of the ways that the products that we want to work with. So, in the first format, you saw a documentary format that's based on the true stories of some of the children who have experienced child marriages. And then in Villant, which was the second, it's a trailer. It's a fictionalized format. So we like both formats. They speak to different audiences. For the first one, we normally use that to influence policy. When we're talking with our parliamentarians who want to be convinced, for example, that child marriages is a problem. If you want to ask for law reform, so we've recently had a change in our Marriages Act so that we outlaw child marriages. So we want to use that to show that this is happening to real people. So we make use of that format, and we make use of real life stories, lived experiences, lived realities. And then the second format is for a wider audience. So you will find that trailer online. We will share the details after, but it's for a wider audience. It's not for a targeted audience. So we do make use of different products depending on our audience. But happy to take any questions that you might have.
Afternoon. Just to add, for us, I think what we are looking for is public engagement and public discourse around the role of women or the role of girls in the community. Because as long as that component does not evolve, we always have the issue of child marriage is an issue of concern. So what we did with that short film with Selma is to also have role models, females who are doing very well that can actually then help to send a message and assist with sending out the story and the way that women can actually do it, and that there is more in terms of what our girls and women can do in the community beyond pushing them for marriage. Yeah.
Thank you, Lloyd. So we're happy to take any questions, any comments, any suggestions in terms of.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks.
My name is Tapiwa. I am particularly passionate about child marriages because I have experienced them firsthand. So I wanted to understand, because you find that it's something that I experienced. The first time I experienced it was when I was 13 years old. The second time I've really experienced it is now when I'm 32. So there's a 17-year gap, and the same problem still persists from when I was 13 up until now. So my question is, how can you convince someone who believes that what I'm doing is right? Because you find that most of the people, I would like to say probably 70% of child marriages in Zimbabwe are because of a certain particular religion. So because of that, how can you convince them that what you're doing is wrong? And in relation to the to the Marriages Act that has been enacted, how are you going to then enact that into their religion and say, okay, fine, with what your religion says versus what the law says, you are wrong. So how can we create that discourse and remove? Because I think this problem needs to be attacked from the root, instead of just saying, oh, we're cutting the branches. Because I think for the last 17 years, we've been cutting the branches, and really nothing has been happening. And now I think it has gotten to a point where we can no longer have that, because, like you said, there are kids in that community that are getting 14 points, 15 points. But as soon as they do that, they are told, you go crazy with the way you're being good in school. you need to get married. Once you get married, your craziness will go away. So now, how then can you reach out to someone who's been indoctrinated like that? What measures are you taking as UNICEF to reach out to girls who don't have their exposure that probably someone who's got a TV or a radio has got exposure to some of the documentaries that you guys do?
So thanks very much, Tapiwa, for that. And you're so right. So I'll kick off, and then I'll let my colleague Lloyd come in. So part of the reason why, as UNICEF, we've decided to take this up as one of our priority areas of focus is precisely the point you've made. We are not seeing a shift or a change for the better in terms of our statistics. So you may have seen in the first shot, 33.7, nearly 34% of our girls, as a national average, are in marriage before the age of 18. But if you look at certain communities, so we have Mashonaland Central, Mashonaland West, 1 in 2 are in marriage. So over 50% of girls are in marriage by the age of 18. So, and that picture has not been changing over time. So that's one, and you are very correct. The second point, I think, if you saw again, just referencing back to our documentary, is that it is not just among one religious sect. And our evidence shows us that it's across the board. So one of the girls was saying, well, I had my boyfriend, and my mother saw me walking with him, and she said, go to your husband. Now that's your husband, you now want, that's one of the pathways. And that cuts across different religions. That cuts across tradition. It's a cultural thing. It's a social norms. It's what we believe when we see a girl walking with a boy. What meaning do we ascribe to that? So we've made this a priority because we think and we believe that we should be having this conversation as a country. What exactly are we doing to our girl children? And what value do we place on our girl children? So that if I see her walking with Tapiwa, I will say, now he's your husband. Go and get married to him. She was not even pregnant. She only fell pregnant the second time after she had been banished from home. So that's a conversation that we are hoping to catalyze so that collectively we can start to look at ourselves. And not just at one culture, not just at one religion, but a collective conversation as a country. And then I'll quickly talk about the Marriages Act. So a huge barrier, a huge bottleneck that we saw with regards to child marriages was that as a country, we did not have a minimum age of marriage. So a girl could be married at 16, it was allowed. A girl could be married at 14, it was allowed. We did not have a minimum age of marriage. So therefore, as a country, we were signaling that it was okay to marry children. And that's why having a law in place was such an important step. But it's not a magic bullet. And like you rightly pointed out, the task now is how do we have those conversations with the people who believe that it is a good practice to then start to shift our beliefs. And that's part of the work that we are doing. And I'll let Lloyd speak to that.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you very much for the question. Just to say that ending child marriages requires social and behavior change communication. In other words, it goes beyond the law, which she mentioned, which is indeed, of course, an important step, but you need to go beyond that because we need to be able to have a coherent alternative narrative to the perception that child marriages is a protective practice. Because the moment actually when you engage with people who actually are involved in this practice, I don't think that their interpretation or explanation of child marriage is that they want to harm the girls. They do have beliefs and practices that basically support that practice. So what is the alternative voice that we're bringing on the table? What are the alternative options or choices that are available for the girl child? So number one, we do believe that we need to look at this from multiple angles. Some of the angles include, number one, education, making education accessible, making education universal for both the girls and the boys. I'll give you an example. During the prolonged school closure due to the COVID regulations, we actually realized that prolonged absence from the school had negative effects across a number of child protection outcomes. So education is important. Secondly, it's also important to really look at the social protection instruments that we have in Zimbabwe in terms of making sure that there is access to the basics that can allow survival. Because let us also not underestimate the effects of the economic hardships and economic circumstances that can actually perpetuate the issue of child marriages. But importantly, what we've also realized is that for targeted interventions, at times it's important to work with progressive insiders. So we have actually come up with programs that are led by men for targeting men. We have programs that are led by maybe moderate religious members of a similar religion to reach out to members of the same religion who might actually be having extreme position around this position. So in short and in ending, I would want to say actually that the responsibilities and actions lie with all of us, because in multiple ways we actually perpetuate and condone this practice. So the moment we all take a stand at an individual level, it's going to translate to a family level, it will translate to a community level before it becomes a national response, a national position around the issue of child marriages. Thank you.
Thank you so much to UNICEF and the team for coming through. We appreciate you guys being here once again. Thank you guys for watching this, and I hope you guys digest it and take hold of it and spread it around your communities, because it's a very important topic that we should carry on speaking about. It shouldn't end here or today, and that's what education is about, passing it on to the next person. So thank you guys once again. We appreciate you. We have a screening in the tent about to start, starting right now. It's called At the End of the Rainbow, and that is screening. It's a short,